crowd there chanted insults against CNN as our correspondent Jim Acosta tried to just do his job. Mr. Trump and his supporters are now consistently attacking parts of the free press. And in the past hour, the White House could only offer this explanation when asked why.
No one was being violent last night in terms of hitting anybody, and no broadcaster was broadcasting state secrets. They were trying to do stand-ups at a public rally, and you had people trying to yell over them, preventing them from doing their jobs, and yelling that their network sucks on live TV.
Look,
does the White House support that or not?
While we certainly support freedom of the press, we also support freedom of speech, and we think that those things go hand in hand. Aisha.
So Brian Stelter is in New York with more on that quite remarkable statement, really, there from Sarah Sanders. Brian, she said we respect the free press. We also respect freedom of speech, as we all do. But there's a difference, right, between criticism, which is justified, and actually abusing, harassing someone who's just trying to do their job.
Yeah, a responsible White House would try to bring the temperature down, but instead this White House almost always likes to bring it up, to raise the temperature even hotter. I think what we are increasingly seeing from the president and his aides and his allies is a hate movement against the American press. Some media critics like Jay Rosen have used this term in the past. I think when you look at the behavior around Jim Acosta and some of the other reporters at these rallies, you really do see a hate movement. And what I mean by that is President Trump is not just telling people to ignore the press or not believe the press. He's really telling people to hate journalists. He's telling people that journalists are the enemy, literally the enemy of the people. He's treating the press corps as his opponent because it's convenient and it creates an enemy for him, a perceived enemy for him to attack. That really is a hate movement, and the results are what we see at these rallies. And because he's holding rallies more and more often, we are seeing it more and more often, and that's why reporters like Acosta are saying this is worrisome, someone might get hurt.
Yeah, so when they say they respect a free press, maybe they just mean they respect a favorable press as well. I mean, you talked there about the harassment. We saw what happened to our Jim Acosta. I mean, how dangerous is this? How dangerous could it be?
We've not seen this before in the United States, but we have seen it in other countries where mostly authoritarian rulers try to turn populations against the press. And we know that ends badly in many, many cases. Obviously, the Committee to Protect Journalists and Reporters Without Borders, these groups that track violence and harassment against journalists, they have seen an uptick in the U.S. In these kinds of incidents. Thankfully, we've not seen the kind of targeted violence that has been seen in other countries. But I think there is ample reason to be concerned because the rhetoric is getting more and more intense and in some cases violent, whether from the president who derides the press as fake news, but then from his allies who take it a step further and say they want to see credentials revoked and things like that. They want to see journalists punished. The problem is that the president creates he sets the table for what ends up being a very dangerous situation.